What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. They just came out with a new update for Warzone today, Raven did, and it had some weapon balancing in it. So I'm going to go over the changes to some of the guns that were meta. And I had said in the past there were only like 3 ARs or 3 main primaries that I felt like stood out, and they've now nerfed 2 of those. So apparently Raven agreed with me. But we're going to talk about the meta and where it sits with primaries as well as SMGs. They also nerfed one of the top SMGs. But let's get into it, and we'll talk about that. As always, if you like the content, drop a sub, like, and a comment. Actually, I have a second video for you coming out today, probably around the same time as this one. Unfortunately, for algorithm reasons, that's not good, but I'm still going to launch them at about the same time. But yeah, let's jump into it. We'll talk about the patch changes, and I'll give you some new recommendations for primaries and SMGs. All right, so first up, they nerfed the Bullfrog. So the Bullfrog had its ADS movement speed, or ADS speed decreased by 90%. So it's not going to ADS nearly as fast as it used to, which is an interesting change. It didn't have it already had the standard like 200 millisecond SMG ADS time, so I'm not sure why they felt like they needed to do that. Movement speed was decreased by 1%, and ADS movement speed was decreased by 2%. So they say it was a jack of all trades. It had good mobility, effective damage range handling, and base magazine capacity, which offered a free attachment. And I agree with all of that. I didn't think it was OP necessarily, but definitely it was a lot of people's favorite gun right now for the SMG category, especially for Iron Trials, because in Iron Trials, headshots are so important because you have time to actually react and aim for the person's head. So that made the Bullfrog really, really good in Iron Trials specifically. With these changes, I think AK-74U and PPSH are going to come out as probably the top 2 more all-rounder SMGs. Bullfrog's still going to be a good choice. It's just they've slowed it down a lot, which is unfortunate for that SMG slot. The next change was Shotgun Bravo. So this is the Gallo. The maximum damage range was decreased from 4.5 to 3.5 meters. Second damage range 8.1 to 5.1 or 5.5. Third damage range from 13.2 down to 9.9. So I haven't made a video on the Gallo because I didn't really want to popularize it, but it's been absolutely dominant in other parts of the world, like Brazil. Every single player in Brazil is running the Gallo right now, and apparently it's made the game like almost unplayable for them. I get people like begging me to cover this gun so they'll nerf it. And they nerfed it anyway, so that's a good change for sure. It hadn't really started affecting the United States as much as other places like Brazil, but I think eventually it would have. And then as for the other changes, Krig 6 got the recoil reduction of its attachments increased a little bit. They're doing this because they just increased the recoil so dramatically in terms of the base recoil. So they made the attachments help a little bit more to make it a little more usable again, which is a good change because it was like ridiculous how much recoil they gave it. They did the same thing except in the other direction for the Cold War AK. So the Cold War AK was one of the 3 guns I said stood out right now. And with this change, it's going to be still really good. But basically they made the attachments not help with recoil as much, which is going to make it feel like it has even more recoil when it already had a lot to start with. So the AK-47 is still going to be a good choice, but I think this is a good change to just kind of bring it more in line with the other guns. Last but not least, XM4, another one of those ARs I said stood out to me when there weren't very many primaries that stood out. They did the exact same thing to the XM4 that they just did to the Cold War AK, basically increasing its effective recoil by decreasing the amount of attachments to help with recoil. So that's not a huge change, but let's go look at the other weapons and think about how this is going to affect the meta now on TrueGameData. All right, so here we have the top SMGs for the more like all-rounder version of an SMG. And this is the weighted TTK charts again. So this is DPS, but weighted to, I believe, 10% head, 7.5% neck, 32.5% chest, 15% stomach, and then 35% extremities. And you get pretty good numbers here. So the AUG 556, of course, is going to come out on top just because it's actually the highest in the game right now as far as SMGs go. So it's all the way up here at like 450. And then there's a big grouping of all these other longer range SMGs. And you see the CX9 actually comes out in second place, followed by the MAC-10. That doesn't include the open bolt delay for the MAC-10. Again, I talked about that in my TTK versus DPS video. If you're interested in that, go check it out. I kind of explain why I'm starting to use DPS more and why I like these weighted DPS values a lot. Then the AK-74U is a little bit slower than the MAC-10 in terms of DPS, but technically it would kill faster than the MAC-10 because the MAC-10 has that open bolt delay, which isn't always important, but is sometimes important. MP7 matches the AK-74U exactly in terms of DPS, so they're right on top of each other here. But the 74U actually has a longer damage range, so it goes out about 3-4 meters further. So that's a nice little benefit of the 74U. Then the Bullfrog and the PPSH are down here towards the bottom. The PPSH also has an open bolt delay, so it's going to have a little bit lower effective DPS than that. So PPSH is actually the slowest in terms of up close DPS of all of these, and it's pretty significantly slower than like the Top Gun, the AK, or sorry, the AUG with the 5.56 rounds. So I think the AUG is looking really nice. But obviously this change for the Bullfrog was the mobility change. So that's why I have the 50 round drum on the CX9 and the 60 round on the MP7, because those are the only two Modern Warfare guns in this list. And both those magazines are kind of essential, and they kill the mobility. So let's go look at the mobility of these guns and compare how they sit. So remember, the AUG is the fastest. And then there's a big grouping of the CX9, MAC-10, MP7, AK-74U, and then the Bullfrog and PPSH are all down at the bottom in terms of TTK. So we kind of want to balance that. We want guns with good TTK and good DPS with good mobility. Out at range, the PPSH actually has the best TTK and DPS. So past this drop off at 15.5 meters, the PPSH takes over and it's faster than everything. So that's one of the reasons why I like it so much as an SMG sniper support, because a lot of those engagements are going to be out 25, 35 meters. And that's where the PPSH really shines. The MAC-10 also does good out at range, very good out at range. The AUG 5.56 doesn't do nearly as well, so it's one of the slower ones out at range. And then the AK-74U also does pretty well out at range. So the top three at range are going to be the PPSH, MAC-10, and the AK-74U. All right, so taking a look at base stats here with the mag attachments for the MP7 and the CX9, because those slow the mobility down. I wanted to include that for fairness between those and the Cold War guns. So the Bullfrog now is done at 4.87 meters per second. So the AK-74U is now faster in movement than the Bullfrog. It also has better ADS movement, and it has better DPS. The Bullfrog's recoil might be a little nicer still, but I feel like that's a fair trade-off given that the AK-74U pretty much beats it everywhere else. The AUG actually has almost the same movement speed as the Bullfrog, base movement speed, but it's still slower in ADS movement speed, but it does have those fantastic TTKs up close. That's something to think about. MAC-10, obviously fastest gun in the game, so it's going to be a lot faster than the Bullfrog. But it does have a really small mag, which is unfortunate, but a good way to balance it. Has decent TTKs, decent DPS, and fantastic mobility. So the MAC-10 is still very good. CX9 is done at 4.79, so it's the slowest of the Bullfrog, AK-74U, and CX9. And it still has really fantastic ADS movement speed, though. So that's one big benefit of the CX9, is it has this great ADS movement speed. MP7 is even slower than the CX9 when you put the 60 round mag on it. Just annoying how the attachments are balanced differently in Cold War guns versus Modern Warfare guns. The fact that 60 round mag just murders your mobility is very frustrating to me. I wish they were balanced the same, but they're not. And then PPSH is one of the fastest guns in the game, so it's not quite as fast as the MAC-10, but it's faster than everything else on this list by a decent amount. So that's why I really think, to me, the standouts, the Bullfrog's still okay, but these mobility changes are just going to be, I don't know, kind of annoying. You can always put like Tiger Team on there and get the movement speed back up above the Modern Warfare guns by a dramatic amount. But overall, I think for me, AK-74U, PPSH, and AUG are going to be my three favorite sniper support SMGs right now. So AUG has that bad mobility, like I said, but to me, those TTKs make up for it. I love being able to melt people up close when I get in that engagement. When I'm at longer ranges, I can kind of use my sniper some, maybe crack them with my sniper and then pull out the AUG. But the AK-74U has better mobility, better DPS. It just has worse recoil than the Bullfrog. PPSH, again, has worse TTKs up close, but much better TTKs at range than all these other options. And it has the best mobility. And to me, it's really accurate. And I love that high fire rate. I feel like that makes the visual recoil really small and flinches the enemy a lot. So those will be my top three: AK-74U, AUG, PPSH to replace your Bullfrog with. But really, there's tons of viable guns right now. They've done a good job balancing the weapons overall. And I think there's a lot of really good choices you can make. All right, I'm not even going to go through and redo a meta video on the ARs because I feel like it's really well balanced right now. I feel like it's hard for me to pick something out that's like exceptionally better than the other things. So Modern Warfare AK, if they hadn't nerfed it, I don't know why they nerfed it. It would still be viable. It'd be very good right now, but they nerfed it really hard recently for no apparent reason. Cold War AK just got this nerf in the most recent patch. But it was just a small recoil nerf. It already had bad recoil, so 1% change in recoil is not going to be a game changer for it. It's still going to be a meta weapon. AN94, pretty good as well. Bad TTKs, but really fun to use and really accurate, extremely accurate. C58, very accurate, not fantastic TTKs, but very accurate. AMAX, again, you can use the AMAX right now. The AMAX is not that bad. With these recoil changes to the Krig, the Cold War AK, and the XM4, EM2 is going to be better than ever as far as how it compares to the meta. It was already good before, now it's going to fit in even better. Meta weapon, I would say. FAL is just really, really hard to use. Farah, after these recent nerfs, it's still in a decent spot. I would say a little bit less than meta in my opinion, but still very good. A lot of people love the Farah, I know. Again, try it out, see if it works for you. FFAR just can't really be used at range, so I'm not really going to talk about that. Scar has some really good TTKs, but that 30-round mag really holds it back. But it is a fun gun to use now because it still has very, very good TTKs. I actually ran it the other night and did pretty well with it. The Growl is pretty much back with all these changes, all these nerfs to the Cold War guns. The Growl is very usable right now, especially with those higher zoom optics that you can't really get on the Cold War guns. If you're on PC, unaffected, of course. If you're on console, then you can use the VLK and you'll get high zoom. Groza's okay. It's just, it doesn't really have the TTK or the accuracy to be used at range, and they kind of want it to be more of an SMG hybrid, I think, with those sprint to fire reductions that they made recently. Kilo's still not very good on Verdansk, but it's extremely good on Rebirth Island because most of your engagements are inside those first 2 damage ranges. So if you get outside that, it kills super, super slow. But inside about 85 meters when it's kitted for long range, it's very good still. So it's great for Rebirth. Krig, with these changes, I have no idea how it's going to fit in. They basically murdered it in the last update, so I don't think making the barrels help with recoil 1% extra is going to really make much of a difference for the Krig. M13 is basically exactly the same as the Growl. It has less visual recoil than the Growl, but the same TTKs and shoots faster. So I love the M13. Tons of fun to use. M4, same story as the Growl and the M13. I think it's very usable right now. It has good TTKs and easily controllable recoil, and you get access to those higher zoom optics like the Scout Combat that you don't have for Cold War guns. Odin's just really hard to control. It's always been a ton of fun. Always hits hard. Has great TTKs and ridiculous range. But it's just really hard to use because it has so much recoil. QBZ, I think, sneaks back into the meta for sure with these changes. Just one of the easiest guns to control on this list, so it's going to be decent, has decent DPS and TTKs, and it's going to sneak back into the meta because of that. Ram 7, again, is like a harder to control M4 with better TTKs, better DPS. So I think it's a great option as well. It's just, I sound like a broken record here, but like literally almost all these guns are usable now, which is a really cool place for the meta to be. XM4, with the recoil change, I still think it's a meta weapon. Again, like I said, I think 1% change in how the barrels affect recoil is like almost nothing and probably won't feel like much at all. So I still think the M13 or the XM4 is one of the absolute best in the game right now. Mostly because of that neck shot multiplier. That 100% headshot damage to your neck is crazy, and basically no other guns have that. The Odin has it, but very few weapons have that, and the fact that the XM4 does makes it, in my opinion, one of the better guns. Then as far as LMGs go, they didn't touch the Stoner. So the Stoner is going to be the same still, and still meta for sure. MG82, extremely usable. Hard to use at range because it has so much recoil, but ridiculous TTKs. It's like the king of TTKs right now. So if you want a gun that's hard to use but has amazing TTKs and you could master and get good with, I would try to learn the MG82. I think it's basically a meta weapon. RPD is a really easy to control LMG. If you want something with low recoil, it's kind of like the Krig of the LMGs. Finn has good TTKs if you use the adverse barrels. If you don't use the adverse barrels, it has ridiculously good recoil, so it's like a trade-off. You want good TTKs or good recoil. Finn's just a fun gun to use. Bruin is basically back. Bruin is same sort of story as the Grau and the M13, where it has pretty low recoil and decent TTKs, and it kind of fits back into the meta now. So I think they've done a really good job creating a balanced meta. Do I love it? I have a hard time finding something that I really love using right now because everything's balanced, which is kind of silly. Silly to say, but it's true. I think they've done a good job though, and I think the meta is in one of the most balanced states it's ever been in for sure right now. So you can use Modern Warfare guns, Cold War guns. There's literally a list of 10 to 20 guns you could use right now and be totally viable in Warzone. All right, everybody, I just wanted to throw together a video here real quick to talk about how I think these changes affect the meta. I think it's a great meta, tons of different things you can use, and I like the way they're taking the game right now. They've said that Iron Trials is probably going to come to customs, which will be amazing. That'll be great for customs tournaments. The way they're balancing the guns has been really good. Overall, I'm really happy with the direction the game is going right now into the launch of Vanguard. So hopefully, with the launch of Vanguard, they maintain this and stuff continues to be great with the new map and new weapons and new game. We'll see, but I hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you guys all in the next one, which will probably be out tomorrow, depending on how busy I get, but working really hard on programming and everything right now. So I'll see you then, and have a great day.